Welcome to New Life Live with host and founder of New Life Ministries, Stephen Arterburn. New Life Live is dedicated to transforming lives one at a time, thanks to the giving hearts of you, our listeners. Our goal is to provide you with wisdom from God's Word to give you hope and help in life's hardest places. If you have a question you'd like to ask today, our phone lines are open. Call 1-800-229-3000. That number again is 1-800-229-3000. Now here's Steve.
How's it going, everybody? Zach Matchett here. I'm filling in for Steve Arterburn today. Thanks again for joining us on New Life Live. We're so glad that you're with us, wherever you're listening to us from. You can join us actually by calling 1-800-229-3000 if you'd like to join the program. That's the number you can call. I'm here with Dr. Jill Hubbard again. Hi, Jill.
Hello, Zach.
And I'm with Jim Burns, too. Our first
Zach.
time together.
Yes,
Yay.
my new good friend, Zach.
Yes.
And I love being with you, Jill. I learn something from you all the time.
We have so much fun together.
I just totally love hanging out. You start talking to a caller, and I start taking notes. And then I come home and tell my wife, we're doing it all wrong. We need to do it this way.
That's right. An indirect counseling appointment
I'm
through the
it.
advice of somebody else.
It's not even costing me.
That's right. Last time we were here, though, something came up in conversation, and I was like, I want to come back to that when we have a little bit, just a few more minutes to unpack it. We were talking about this search for intimacy through relationships, whether it's a marriage relationship or in a parent-child relationship, having connection with our kids having connections with their parents. And we talked about this idea that intimacy is so comprehensive. In a marriage relationship, for example, when we say intimacy, we maybe think of it more from a sexual or a physical way, but that is so intertwined with emotional and spiritual intimacy of all kinds. And yet we live in a world, frankly, that promises that intimacy because of the presence of accessibility, but it's actually creating a faux intimacy. My question to you guys is, and Jill, maybe we can start with you first, is just how do we avoid the trap of falling for that faux intimacy? Now, I don't necessarily mean digitally, but just even in the marriage relationship, parent-child, where we think there's closeness or openness with each other, but it's not as close as we want it to be, and there may be barriers happening that cause that to not happen.
So I think we need to not ignore that little voice inside of us that says something isn't right. We need to be aware that familiarity is not intimacy, nor is intensity intimacy, right? And so there's a lot of people that come together in a really intense way, and it's really exciting and fun, right? And they think that is intimacy, right? And so then it leads them to then maybe choose to be closer than they ought to be, right? And to become physically involved. And then we're really getting things backwards in this culture. And what happens once you get involved physically, emotional intimacy stops growing. Yeah. And we really need to lay the foundations of emotional intimacy before we enter into physical intimacy. And that's by God's design, right? Because it just creates such a shaky foundation when the physical comes first, and then you try to pour in the emotional. Yeah. Right?
Well, Jill, you are so right. First of all, when you said even that still small voice, I was so dense when I first got married that I had to listen to another voice, and it was my wife. Because she said, this isn't working as well as I thought. And I went, it isn't? We're having physical intimacy. I'm laughing. I like our job. I like where we live. And she was like, no. It was her lip that started quivering. And I could tell that was a problem. And sometimes we have to do that. But you're 100% right. Research says that we call it instant intimacy, that if people actually have sex, it sometimes fogs them into thinking that they're in love. But really, it was in infatuation. So that's why around here we're big on the biblical principle that, if you're going to be physically intimate, get married, be married.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And do the work of getting to the depths of the core, whether it's pain or issues or challenges, and you'll find plenty of catalysts for a lack of intimacy. Trust me, they will reveal themselves. And so maybe you're listening today, and that's kind of where you find yourself at. You find yourself strained in relationships or find challenging situations with a child or a spouse or something like that. Give us a call. 1-800-229-3000 is the number. When we get back, we'll get to our calls. And thanks for being here today.
It had become very apparent that some of the things I was involved with were taking over my life.
In today's world, men are barraged with inappropriate content and images all day, every day. Some say that certain behaviors are just no big deal. It's just part of being a guy. But it's simply not true. It's a battleground for every man, and the opportunities to fail are everywhere. New Life's Every Man's Battle workshop can help.
After 7 years, he just one weekend, a completely changed man.
For over 20 years, New Life Ministries has been helping men regain their integrity and purity through their one-of-a-kind Every Man's Battle workshop.
He said, I think this is something that every man should go to. Married, dating, it was definitely life-changing.
Now the workshop is coming to Washington, D.C. November 4th through the 6th. Don't wait for him to call. To find out more, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to newlife.com.
I just can't say enough of what New Life has done for our marriage.
1-800-NEW-LIFE. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Zach Matchett here, filling in for Steve Arterburn on New Life Live. Jim Burns and Dr. Jill Hubbard are with me. We're going to get to your calls here in just a second, but, obviously this program, there are times where somebody calls in, they've got a challenging situation. We only have a few minutes to try to unpack their story and the context and all those kinds of things. And sometimes it's just not enough. And what we want to do is for those of you that maybe are in that situation is to promote the deeper help that New Life as a ministry offers through all the workshops that we do, the resources and conferences, counselors and coaches, life recovery. And so a couple ways just to find out about that is just go to our website, newlife.com, or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Because even if you join the program and we get like the Spark Notes version of the Spark Notes version, you guys know Spark Notes, right? Or Cliff Notes. Yeah, one or the other.
Used to be
same
Cliff
thing.
Notes. Now it's Spark.
Spark Notes. But yeah, we're getting that small, mini edited version of what's going on. And we'd love to give you a resource and get you put in the right direction. But this might be a good follow-up step for you, for anybody listening to the program, just to take advantage of some of those next steps. You could just, again, go to newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. And again, you might find the exact best next step that you need to take for the situation in your life. And so just want to encourage you with that. We're going to go to our first call. We're going to go to Sarah. Sarah is actually listening to us on Facebook in New Jersey. So Sarah, welcome to New Life Live. How can we help you today?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I was wondering if you could tell me the difference between what is an addiction and OCD, because I'm trying to figure out with something that I'm struggling with, if it's one or the other or both. I don't know.
Well, maybe. Go ahead, Sarah.
I've struggled with obsessive compulsive thoughts before with counting and other things like that. I've also, struggled with addictions in the past, but I just really struggle with these thoughts that are like very disturbing, and they're like blasphemous thoughts and like curse words in my mind that are sexual in nature. And I'm wondering, is this like a lust addiction or is this an OCD thing? And it takes a lot of focused concentration for me to pretty much like make it through the day. And then when I do have the thoughts, my heart starts racing really fast, and I just get fearful.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering what I'm dealing with here.
Right. And you said, okay, Sarah, and thank you for all of that. That helps a lot.
Thank you.
And you said past addictions. What kinds of addictions are we talking about?
Well, just with the thoughts, like not being able to stop the thoughts.
Okay. So what you're describing, I would put more in the camp of obsessive compulsive issues, okay? Addictions and obsessive compulsiveness definitely overlaps, because people that are addicted are obsessed with something, right? And then they feel a compulsion, right, to act it out. With obsessive compulsive disorders or issues or thoughts like what you're describing, this is not, believe it or not, is not uncommon. And so you're having intrusive thoughts. And so we do know that obsessive compulsive disorders have a biological base to them. They often are passed down through families. And so one of the main interventions is a pharmacological intervention because of, it's hard to just will these things to stop. Okay, so I don't know if you've gone down that route or not, or if there is anyone else in your family who has suffered with this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do take medication, but I have to say, like, I hate taking the medication.
I know.
It feels like, especially being in the faith community, like, it makes me feel like like I'm a lesser Christian, or it makes me like think like I'm scared that these thoughts are like I'm going to go to hell. Like there's like this fear of like, displeasing the Lord, that they're sinful. And
Sarah, and that is part of the dilemma of this kind of obsessive compulsiveness, is that there is a strong spiritual component to it. And, if you had any other kind of illness, if you had a thyroid disorder, you would take medication, because without it, your body wouldn't be able to function. And I think you have to look at it more along those lines, not that you're not being spiritual enough. Because when you start getting into that, I'm not being spiritual enough, that in and of itself becomes an obsessional disorder.
Yeah.
And I have had people driving themselves crazy, thinking they've displeased the Lord, and they go through all these gymnastics that don't even make sense and aren't really biblical. And so there is no shame in taking medication, especially when it's warranted, right? And the research shows. And so it sounds like you don't like the idea of the medication. Now, I also know medications all have side effects, and so that can be unpleasant, right? But at the same time, you kind of have to weigh out cost-benefit here, because what is more unpleasant, right? These intrusive thoughts. Mm-hmm. So in taking the medication, then also doing some counsel around this. I know that people that tend to ruminate and be obsessive need to talk a lot about it. Okay, that being said, sometimes there's a need to kind of cut off these thoughts and to, in a sense, rebuke them, right, as not of God.
Yeah, Jim, anything you want to add there?
No, only thing I would add, Sarah, is I think you have a beautiful spirit about this. And please hear what Jill said. Medication is not evil in itself. Okay, it can help you, and if it's helping you, great, and if not, make sure you get an assessment, because again, sometimes one medication may work better than the other or whatever, so make sure you're in touch with that, with the medical side to it. But there is a discipline that takes place in this, and sometimes it is, as she used the word rebuke, and I like that, because some people, can do that. They can rebuke a thought. I know a guy who has a very similar situation as you, and when he's in that situation, he goes right to the Psalms and he goes right to the Proverbs, and he reads through them every month, and sometimes he reads extra, but for some reason that calms him down and gets his mind, kind of mindset, I would say, straightened out. Find what that is for you. It might be sitting down and having a cup of tea. It may be, putting your mind on some scripture and putting scripture that you've memorized into your mind. It may be just the discipline of saying, okay, I'm going to bounce my thought process here because it's going in this direction. I'm going to move it. Now, again, I'm not saying that's easy, but there are things that you can do. And frankly, you get some of those ideas from being around a counselor or a therapist, a coach, someone who understands obsessive compulsive disorder. Mm-hmm. And there are people who have obsessive compulsive disorder who do take medication, and they learn certain techniques that help them. Mm-hmm. And so find out what that is for you. But your thought, you can't control your thoughts all the time.
But you can't control the first thought that
The first
pops
thought,
into
sure,
your head,
sure.
right?
So
you control then what you do
right,
with it.
and sometimes you take 5 steps forward and 4 steps back, and sometimes you take 4 steps forward and 2 steps back, and other times it's like 10 steps back. I mean, it's a process. And you look
Right.
up one day and you go, wow, I'm not thinking about this as much as I used to.
So, Jim, and something that you said that I think is really important, people I find that struggle with a kind of a spiritual theme to their obsessiveness are the most sincere Christians and desire to please God wholeheartedly. Right? So it really isn't about not being spiritual enough, right? And remember, the focus needs to be not on what we do, but what Christ did for us and us accepting that.
Yeah.
And so then, Sarah, another piece to this is when you find this flaring up, what are you anxious about? Right? What else is going on in your life that maybe is harder for you to put words to? And those are some things I think that would be important for you to talk about with someone.
You know, Paul talked about a thorn in the flesh, and sometimes we think it could have been, he honestly had a limp or something, but a lot of times it might be more of an emotional issue that, our circumstance isn't always going to go away.
Right.
So we have to work through that circumstance because some things can change. Our attitude can change. Our lifestyle can change. We can do certain things to help change some of that. But our circumstance may be with us. And we have to sometimes look at that as more that thorn in the flesh.
Right. And sometimes we need to have a person in our life that we give permission to say, okay, I'm starting to spin off, help redirect me. Like, tell me that I'm off base.
Yeah.
Right, so that I know. So it's kind of like the hamster's on the wheel and I'm ruminating, and we need somebody to kind of hit our brain a little bit to say, okay, no, that's just your brain being obsessional over here. Right?
Call it out.
That's right. Jill, is there a specific resource that maybe would be helpful, either with the particulars of this or something more generic that could be a good resource we could send to Sarah?
Well, the one that we have would be maybe Take Your Life Back as a way to, have more of a voice and direct your thoughts in a positive way.
That's a great suggestion.
Right. I
can
know
send a
there
copy
are
of that.
resources out there,
Yeah.
but I can't think of one right
Well,
now.
let's send you a copy of that, Sarah. And as you guys were just unpacking that, Jill and Jim, I was recently at a conference in Washington, D.C. and heard a gentleman I wasn't familiar with, Dr. Nye Addy. He works at the Yale School of Medicine. He's a neuroscientist, and he's a Christian. Was asked the question of just this idea of, okay, kind of this like Jesus or therapy or Jesus or medication, and he's like, no, let's change the conjunction, like Jesus and therapy and Jesus and counseling and Jesus and medicine at times. And he just made the example. I thought this was very simple. He just said, look, if somebody falls on the floor with heart failure, you're going to pray, but you're going to call the ambulance too. I mean, these are concurrent strategies. And I felt when Sarah was sharing that, just that, well, I'm just afraid I won't be seen as, that's populated from somewhere. And I think it's not always inward. I think we and Jim, you can speak this too, as church leaders, we've got to do a better job stewarding the sacred responsibility we have of not unnecessarily contributing bad theological takes because it's rooted in I don't need medicine anyway. It's actually more of a pride thing than something, or shame driven than it is necessarily something scriptural. What would you say to that?
I think spiritually we're oftentimes called to seek counsel.
Yeah,
I remember
absolutely.
telling my mom and dad, who were not in the church, not in faith at the time, that Kathy and I, our first year of marriage, got counseling, and they went, well, you can just buck this up. You can make it happen. Pull it up from the bootstraps, because that was the only thing they knew. And why would you be so weak? What I was learning was that in my weakness, I can give it over to God, yes, and God can help me by bringing people around me to hold me accountable, to give me insight and wisdom and all that. And I think the people who grow the most spiritually are the people who are willing to admit their weakness, be authentic, and say, bring on the help, however that is.
Right.
And yet our mindset a lot of times, and maybe it was a parent that did what my parents did to me, but maybe it was a parent that is saying, no, only weak and messed up people go to counseling. that's just the opposite.
Man.
And that's what I love about.
You have to have a bit of strength to actually
exactly.
tolerate
And
it.
that's what I love about
yes.
New Life. One of the things I love about Steve Arterburn is that he'll say, "Yeah, in my counseling appointment." Well, here, he's leading an incredible ministry in New Life, and he goes, "In my counseling appointment this week, here's what I learned." Yay! He's modeling that for us.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And we're all on a journey, and we've got to all have an outlet to get to the root of what the issue actually is. And so, yeah, I just think, again, as a church leader, I was just trying to think of myself, like, hopefully I've never inadvertently communicated that somehow there's this tier system. It's like you do all that, you pray, you journal, you seek God, you find communion with God. And then if all else fails, I guess you just go to counseling, or I guess you just go to this. And I don't think I've ever done that, but unfortunately, I think that is a message that sometimes gets played out in the church, that there's this, if you did have enough faith, if you did pray, or if you did do this, almost making God this transactional God. Like, you didn't put enough money in the pop machine today, I can't give you a pop, today. Yeah. If we see God in that way, I mean, God's word says, my grace is sufficient for you in weakness. And that is the greatest source of strength we can draw from. So it's worth being weak and opening up. We'll be right back.
My husband was involved with pornography addiction.
He was unfaithful. I called the wedding off. He stepped out on the marriage and ended up having a child.
The Restore Workshop is designed for a woman dealing with a man's sexual addiction issues.
My husband is a recovering sex addict. There were strip clubs, other ladies.
If you've been affected by betrayal, an emotional or physical affair, or pornography, the Restore Workshop will equip you with support and tools to help you through.
Restore has empowered me and has given me the tools to work through my anger, work through my pain, work through my confusion, and help me realize that I am worthy.
Being here and being surrounded by people who get it has given me my power back.
The Restore Workshop is coming to Washington, D.C. November 11th through the 13th. To register or to find out more, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE or online at newlife.com.
Thank you, Restore. You have changed my life forever.
Chris Williams on coaching.
Oftentimes I get asked, what is the difference between therapy and coaching? The biggest difference between the two is that a therapist is going to be looking for a diagnosable mental health condition, whereas a coach is going to look at a particular issue and help a person work through that.
If you need a coach, call New Life today and ask about the New Life Coaching Network. Our coaches have been trained and screened with the same intensive process we use for our network counselors.
If you're looking at an issue in your life that you just kind of want to change, whether it be your weight or leadership or other areas of behavioral patterns, check out coaching. There can be some really, really helpful things for you.
Take control of your life and take action to achieve your goals. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433 and talk to us about getting a New Life coach. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Zach Matchett here, filling in for Steve Arterburn. Thanks again for joining us today on New Life Live. Dr. Jill Hubbard and Jim Burns are with me. Just before the break, we were talking about this idea of our last caller, just this idea of I don't want to take medication, or I don't want to get into counseling. Maybe you've found yourself saying this because I think I ought to have, I have God in my life. I need to have more faith. And I made the made the illustration of like putting enough money in the vending machine, like a pop machine. And I realized I said a very Hoosier, Indiana word. I said pop. And so I know there are many of you listening around the country that may need a bit of a thesaurus for this. And so a pop is a Coke or a soda, so Mountain Dew, anything like that. So I just feel like it was just important
soda
to
pop.
honor all the listeners.
It's called soda pop.
Now Zach, let's be honest. We hassled you because we're sitting here in a studio in California. We don't use the word pop.
I know,
but we knew what you were talking about. I think our listeners did too.
I saw a little snicker from you, Jim. I was like, okay.
Well, first I thought you
said pot.
First I thought you said pot, and I went, wow, he has gone, totally woke here on us.
I remember when Zach used to host New Life Live.
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, but just that idea of like we just think, oh no, God's not going to give us what. No, that is a totally bad viewpoint. And man, we need to operate. And Jill even said it, like there's strength when you go and sit in the chair and talk to somebody that is going to give you some help, or not to think less of yourself if you feel like medication is going to be God's means to bring some regularity and get your biochemistry back in order again. I just think that is an important thing to talk about and to encourage people that they feel that way. And so be encouraged if you're in that place to know that you're not alone. But again, this is a both and. It's not an either or. Wanted to mention real quick, we've talked about this in the past couple of programs, but just living with sexual integrity. And we've mentioned Every Man's Battle as a workshop. And what a great resource. It's held monthly. It's a no shame zone. You're going to gain tools and connection. You're going to leave with a hope and a plan for a new path forward of how to live a life of sexual integrity. And if you want to get some upcoming dates and locations for those workshops, just go to newlife.com and you can get the information for that. But I want to read just real quick a recent attendee that sent this to us, and this is what he experienced after attending the workshop. He said, I came into this day with little to no hope of recovery. I felt exhausted at my failed attempts to escape from pornography and masturbation. And I leave today feeling hope that true healing comes from intimacy with God, intimacy with myself, and intimacy with others. I am leaving with a plan which will bring me victory. And man, what an amazing thing to walk away from, to know that I have a plan, that there's a plan in place to work those steps. Maybe it's getting into a support group. Maybe it's doing some other resource that would be helpful to remove that addiction from the life. But if that's your next step for you, if you find yourself, I need sexual integrity in my life, please visit newlife.com and get more information about our Every Man's Battle workshops. They have changed so many lives and will continue to do so. And so again, that's the next step for you. We would love to get you the information about that. We're going to go to our next call. We're going to go to Rudy, who has been patiently waiting on the line with us. And so thanks so much, Rudy. He's listening in Baltimore, Maryland. How can we help you today?
Hi, Zach, Jill, and Jim. I got a question about anxiety. It's something that started maybe, I guess I've had it my whole life, but it's gotten problematic or severe maybe starting 10 years ago. And it's just worsening as I get older. I'm 65 and I'm single and live alone. And it just seems like I worry or get fearful about so many things. A small example would be a next-door neighbor fixing up his house because he says he might be moving soon. Well, I get frantic as to who the new neighbors are going to be. Are they going to be nice? Are they going to be noisy? Am I going to get along with them? It could be anything. It's getting to work on time. How I appear to people, am I sociable enough, friendly enough? Am I coming on too strong? It could be, like I said, and I don't know what to do about it.
Rudy, yeah, it sounds like some of the basis of this, what you're struggling with, is a sense of, am I okay? Am I acceptable? Right? Even the worry about the new neighbors, will they like me? And I hear, just in briefly what you've shared so far, you live alone, and I'm imagining that you're very isolated.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, I mean, I do get out.
Okay.
I go to church. I have a couple friends, but like at church, everyone at church seems so satisfied and content or happy. It's like most of them are married with families, careers are all set in life, and they seem just so I can't think of a word, just settled, calm and settled. And I'm there, and I'm trying to hide it. Like, I'm nervous being here. Here I am, this single guy, alone, and we talk for just maybe a couple minutes, and then they move on because they have things to do. They're fulfilled. They have a family structure, and they got things to do after church, and they have their established friends. But that's just church, and I feel like I'm always left, like I'm not getting anywhere.
Yeah. That's frustrating.
Yeah, it is. That's just church. I mean, it's other things. It's like because I don't have much money, and I worry about my future. Am I going to be able to take care of myself financially?
These are big things, Rudy. Yeah, these are big things. These are not small things at all. We're going to go to a break here in just a second, Rudy, but I'm going to ask that you stay on the line because I want to allow Jim and Jill to respond. I really appreciate your bravery in calling today and being so open and vulnerable. So please stay on the line. We'll be right back.
For most of my life, I've been dealing with an opiate addiction.
Why is opioid addiction quickly becoming one of our nation's biggest killers? Maybe it's because it isn't only those who are addicted who are in denial.
We did what I see so many parents do, is it can't be an addiction. There's something medically wrong.
It's impossible to solve a problem when you don't know what you're up against, and families will try to find any explanation except the one that will put them on the right path.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
If someone you love is abusing painkillers, know what you're up against. It's time to admit its addiction and seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have partner treatment centers around the country. Call 1-800-639-5433 or visit us online at newlife.com.
We just made a decision. We will do whatever it takes.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I was really living a very anxiety-filled life. I did go to Take Your Life Back. That's why I continue to support the ministry with the hope that not only am I helping my own situation, that I'm helping others as well.
You can help New Life stay on the air by joining Club New Life today. When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, we'll send you the new member thank you gift of the 1-year Bible for men or the 1-year Bible for women. These Bibles combine the best-selling daily Bible reading format with 2-minute daily devotionals written to create a one-of-a-kind devotional Bible that you'll love. There are also ongoing benefits like the monthly Club New Life CD or download, access to the Club New Life video library, quarterly resources, and discounts on workshops. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Support Club New Life, and together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Thanks again for joining us today. Zach Matchett here for Steve Arterburn. I am also with Dr. Jill Hubbard and Jim Burns, and we are with Rudy on the line. Rudy has called in and just asked, I guess, just kind of a general question of, some anxiety that's been in his life, Rudy, that you've said for quite some time, but it seems to be increasing or happening with more frequency or more intensity. And you even gave us some examples of different environments and different situations where that comes up. And just before the break, you were mentioning even being in a local church and you're interacting with people and talking with them. And it feels as though, and I'm sure it's not as much what you feel, but just it seems like everybody else in the church, they're settled, they have families, they've got things going for them. And here you are kind of on the outside looking in, and boy, that could be a pretty paralyzing place to be. But at the same time, it's also quite the illusion. And not to disparage the people that you're seeing at the church that maybe have their life together, that they've got what's the old quote? Everybody's fighting a battle you know nothing about. And I think that's a quote. So that's just something that's there. But I want to pass this off to Jim and let him start this off, Rudy, because you're in a unique season of life where I hear a real longing for connection, friendship, and certainly a decreasing of the anxiety. So, Jim, what would you encourage Rudy to do?
Well, I'd say a couple of things, Rudy, and I'm anxious to hear what Jill has to say too. But you do want to try to find the root of some of your anxiety. You said you've had this for a long time, and interesting enough, when Jill said, do you want to feel okay? You want to, that might be something that comes from the past. Oftentimes we are who we are because of our past, and so you might have to go back into the past, find the root, and all of a sudden you might feel some freedom. I'm going to go a different direction though. I wrote a book called Finding Joy in the Empty Nest, and I'm not saying that every chapter is for you, but I interviewed people who were single in the empty nest. And what was interesting is the ones who were doing well, and this is everybody I talked to, but the ones who were doing well, they pretty much had a small group. They didn't need to be approved and loved by everybody at their church or everybody at work or whatever, but they had a small group that they met with regularly. And it might be one other person and it might be 5 people, but they felt loved, accepted, and cared for by that small group. And they also, in that small group, held each other accountable. And it was amazing to me how I just kept hearing the same thing over again. I didn't expect it. I didn't know what to expect. And then the other thing that I heard them say was that as they got older, the ones who were doing better, even more so, but they were volunteering. They were doing something special. I talked to a woman who was very much in your place. And what she did, her change was that she started volunteering for the Cancer Society. And then at her church, they had some kind of a feed the poor program or whatever. And she jumped into that. She found some friends. And then she goes, I find my meaning not so much in a large group, but when I'm handing that food to these people who are like so grateful. And so it's interesting to me, and I wrote about that in that book because I was so impressed with people who were your age, 65, who found their meaning in this small group. It became their community. It became, in some ways, their family. And many of them said, I don't have the family that that others have, or I don't feel a part of it. Even I feel different than all the people at church who, come with their kids and everybody's all, looks like they're all happy. Zach was right. They're not all happy. I'll guarantee. I'm a pastor. But the point being, I would just suggest that, and I'm asking you to do something that, you're anxious. So to be in a small group, to jump into that, and if it was at your church, it'd be awesome. But also, like a lot of these single people, a couple of them said, hey, I'm in a small group, part singles, part married. Fine. But some of those people were in groups with other singles, and they just found great healing and great benefit by coming together, holding each other accountable, growing spiritually too, by the way. But, they had acceptance and they had love from there. Jill?
Yeah, no, I think that's really key, Rudy. And one of the things that's so hard, first of all, anxiety is like a number one malady. That all ages are experiencing. So, Rudy, you're not alone. And some people just hide their anxiety better than others. But lots of people run anxious. And, more people have anxious attachments from growing up than secure attachments, unfortunately. And we know that how we have grown up, how we related to our first caregivers, our parents, right? That also affects our relationship with God and our ability to trust Him and to trust Him with our future. And so we have to remind ourselves of that He's perhaps not let you down so far, right? And that He will not let you down in the future. It may not be what you've always desired, right? But you're still here and you're still plugging along. And so as an adult, we have to face our fears. So we have to do things afraid. So we feel anxious and we have to push ourselves to do it anyway, because some of that will then calm the anxiety as we have a little bit of success. And I do hear you doing some of that. But Rudy, I like, Jim, your suggestions, taking it a step further and getting involved places so that you have some place where you feel accepted. And I would ask you that, are there any people in your life that you feel really accepted by? That you feel like, oh, I can actually relax a little bit more with these people. And if not, then all the more reason to seek that out, right? And maybe it's a small men's group. Maybe you ask 2 other guys, can we meet once a week for coffee and just talk about life, right? And you do that repeatedly over time, and that's where the comfortableness then develops.
Yeah, Rudy, how would you respond to that?
No, that's what I would. I've thought about that. It's funny. This sounds odd, but a couple of years ago, I was thinking about going on the computer online and trying to start a social group for men in my age group, men who were in my same boat, single, for whatever means it happened. They even never got married, or perhaps divorced, or the wife passed away on them. And we'd have things in common, basically, because we're all men of the same age, and just kick around and talk about things in general. And I didn't do anything with it, but it was an idea. I thought, you need to be around some people, and I thought about guys, because the friends that I have, I don't see them that much, and they're all elderly. And I fear of them passing away.
Yeah.
They're a good bit older than me, and it's like, oh my goodness, if those three go, where will I be? Because neighbors are neighbors, and coworkers are coworkers. You get, it's what's the word I'm trying to think of? It's they're friendly, and you say hi to each other. Superficial.
They're more acquaintances.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's right.
They're not as in depth
yeah.
as your friends.
Right? Yeah, they're acquaintances, and so yeah, I mean that's what I was trying to do for church. But they don't have any groups for men, really. They have a prayer breakfast once a month, I think. And so I've thought about doing that. But, see, they just come together for that once a month.
Yeah, this may be a thing too, Rudy. Yeah, sorry to cut you off. This may be a thing too where, and I know this is tricky. I mean, I believe in the local church and that you should be involved in a congregation. I just think that's such an important thing for all of us to do. However, depending upon the certain context of the church, they may not offer that kind of program. But what I would encourage you to do, Rudy, is to maybe look at other churches in your area and see, well, who does have some sort of, maybe it's a specific ministry for men, or maybe if it's even more tailored, it's a ministry for those that are 60 and up, or singles, or what. And there's maybe more of a tailored kind of experience, and allowing the big C church, if you will, the capital C church, made up of all kinds of churches to minister to you. And maybe and sometimes this is good because it's still geographically close. And so, yes, I mean, you're maybe worshiping at one congregation, but there may be 10 to 12 others in your area that are maybe just as close or not that much further away that are still within your area where you live. And that could be a good outlet and to take advantage of that, because again, I just think each church has a unique expressions of what they do to really serve the people of that community, and that might be an outlet that you can do that. Jim, I see you're shaking your head.
Yeah, and I think it's so important. You're right. I think some churches do a better job than others.
Sure.
When I was speaking for Promise Keepers, we would always suggest that men go to a weekly Bible study. And if they go to that, and the Bible study may be too large, but out of that study, then you become you find a smaller group.
Yeah,
yesterday, I was at breakfast with the chairman of the board of Hubbard, where I work, and we were laughing because there was a group of men who had come from their Bible study, and they were more our buddy's age here, 65. And what was fascinating was they had the Bible study, but then they had time and they went to have breakfast. They laughed the whole breakfast.
You start with the big group, right? Yeah. And then that's how you get to know people that maybe will spin off.
Right. And I was listening. They were talking about the Dodgers and games and things like that, but they were having fun. They were friends.
Right.
They developed friendship.
Yes.
That happens organically.
That's something I'll look into. I mean, that other churches that have groups, some kind of group for men, and attend there and see if I can strike up some friendship and still maintain my association with my regular church.
Yes.
Well, go to the once a month prayer breakfast. That's not going to hurt you because you could meet people there too.
That's right. That's
true.
right.
That's true.
Yeah, Rudy, thanks so much for calling. Stay on the line because I want to get you a resource we can see that might be helpful, but we'll do that after the break here in a second. But thanks again for your bravery and calling. You really put yourself out there. I appreciate it.
We knew our marriage was broken, but we didn't know how to fix it.
The New Life Intimacy and Marriage Workshop is coming to Dallas, Texas, October 21st to the 23rd.
It has transformed our lives, our marriage. You have reached our home. You have helped transform our lives.
Join Steve Arterburn.
It's been a dream of mine for a long time to help people to grow more intimately together, and we believe that everybody has room to grow in the intimacy level of their life.
And Milan and Kay Yurkovich.
We help couples understand how their attachment style is sabotaging their current relationship, and then we teach them how to create comfort in a relationship.
To register or to find out more, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433 or go to newlife.com.
Thank you for giving us a pathway where we can humble ourselves and say, Lord, we need help. Help us fix it. And we thank you for that.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE for more information. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Join New Life Ministries for a brand new one-day conference for women at the Museum of the Bible called Lumina. Join us for an unforgettable day with friends or the women's group from your church. At Lumina, you will be immersed in and surrounded by God's Word all day, including time in the World Stage Theater for worship led by Nicole C. Mullen. a powerful message from Bible teacher Jen Wilkin that will leave you empowered to live into your calling. Plus, a private group tour of the Museum of the Bible. There's nothing like it. This one-day event, Lumina, is happening on Thursday, November 3rd, or Friday, November 4th. Pick the day that works best for you. Gather your friends and get your tickets at newlife.com. Hurry, special pricing ends soon, so visit newlife.com and click on the Lumina banner. Inspire your faith at Lumina, where women rise together. Learn more at newlife.com.
To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Thanks again for joining us today here on New Life Live. If you want to give us a call, we would love to hear from you. 1-800-229-3000 is the number. And if you just need help with anything at all in terms of next steps and resources and information about workshops, you've heard us mention, 1-800-NEW-LIFE is the number to reach us for that. We've been here with Rudy, just sharing about just his unique season of life and increased anxiety, just about a lot of hard things. I mean, things that any human can really connect with. Thoughts about friendships ending or people he loves passing away or not feeling connected within the confines of a church. I mean, that is a lot of universal connection. But as we were talking about it, Jim, you had mentioned a book that you had written, and while you said it may not be perfectly cross-pollinated with everything that Rudy's going through, but there are some unique things that would be helpful to him, and I want you to send a copy of that.
Yeah, it's called Finding Joy in the Empty Nest. And what I really like about what he's saying is we're talking, and there's a chapter on singles and there's a chapter on friendship. And the people who have friendship and who are single, they make some of those good decisions. The ones, when I interviewed them in terms of so many different groups that I would talk to, the ones who didn't do good watched a whole lot of TV and looked at online a lot. Stayed home. And I actually think Rudy is 70% there because he's saying, I can step out. I have this. You and I were saying, we just want to have coffee with him. He sounds like such a nice guy, right?
I know. I know.
But anyway, we'll send that book to you.
And the truth is, a lot of times couples, as they get older, will isolate together.
Oh, totally.
Right? Whereas when you're single, you're alone. So you really have to reach out more.
Exactly.
And while it's important to have friends your same age, right? It's important. You have to keep adding friends and sometimes younger friends because people do pass away.
And there are people who are 65 who could be mentors to younger people.
Well,
and don't
I
even
was
realize
thinking
that
too.
Yeah.
Like
and
the
now,
high school and college groups need older people.
Absolutely.
Right? Who have time to give.
Absolutely.
Yes, man. You're
Now we're
speaking to two student pastors. You're being you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, we want Rudy on our youth ministry team right now.
We don't need young people volunteering in student ministry. We need young attitudes. That's all we need. Absolutely. That is an ageless thing there. So, but no, I think that's a great resource to send to him. And again, just the uniqueness of that stage of life. And man, we were made to be in relationship, weren't we? We need community, and you could hear that in his voice. And so, be encouraged if whoever you are to double down on getting that small group of people around you to really encourage you in your faith and in your life. I'm going to go to Wayne Olson now. Wayne is the Chief Development Officer for New Life, and he's going to share some things with us. So, Wayne, welcome to the program.
Hey, Zach and Jill and Jim, hello, and thanks for having me. And Zach, love listening to the show, and I'm always amazed. You never know what you're going to learn. And I learned two things today that I'm going to take with me and take home. And the first one is there's things out there called pop machines. I've never heard of them. But the other thing is, and this is the most important thing, around here, Coke machines take dollars and credit cards, and apparently pop machines take quarters. So I want to go find.
I thought that was a great sales pitch to come to the good old state of Indiana, everybody. It's still in change,
I'm not sure why anyone would want to get a pop, but I'm sure there's some value to that. But the neat thing is, a lot of people like to give to New Life and be part of the New Life family. And the nice thing is, whether you're giving quarters or dollars or credit cards or something else, it all matters and it all counts and it all does some good. And I'm just going to read a brief letter to you from somebody who was touched by New Life, a listener to the show. She writes, I want to thank you so much, in all capital letters, for helping me go to the Emotional Freedom Weekend earlier this year. Life-changing. I am somewhat sane and alive today because of it. Thank you. and a number of exclamation points and highlighted on this letter. Somebody that was truly blessed by this ministry and this program. And when you give to New Life, not only do we appreciate it and we're grateful, but you should also know that you're helping people like the person who wrote this letter make their lives better. And it's a good thing.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne. And I agree. And just know that when these types of things happen, like just this woman that went on the Emotional Freedom Weekend, that is a turning point moment in that woman's life. That is a moment that years from now she'll look back and go, that moment, that was a stake in the ground. That was, in the scriptures they talk about building an altar where they saw God do something spectacular in their lives or in the people of God, and it was just a commemorative type thing. And those can be real momentum builders for people's faith and recovery.
Well, right. It's like light bulbs go off, Zach, and when you have a head and a heart connection, right, that's where you can then start to have those paradigm shifts, right? And you gain some things that you take with you and help you to do life differently.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so if you give to New Life, just know that you're on the ground, you're making an amazing difference in the lives of people. And as I've shared before, and as I've been hosting the program a number of times here, you're making resources accessible to people, and just know that when you do that, when you give, it's going to go right to somebody that really, really needs those next steps to kind of find their journey, to continue their journey to recovery or freedom from addiction or whatever the case may be. And one of the other things that you can do, I think, that's helpful is if you know somebody who maybe is walking through a situation of what you just heard on the program. So oftentimes, and you guys know this, we get calls on behalf of others. People call in and say, oh, my son or my daughter or a friend of mine or my parents or whatever, and you're calling on behalf of somebody. The other thing that you can do that would be helpful for New Life is if you find this program helpful, you can go to our YouTube channel, for instance. If you just type in New Life Ministries into YouTube and find the channel, there's playlists there of different topics, and obviously the shows here are recorded. And man, you hear a topic, you're like, oh my goodness, so-and-so would really be encouraged by this, and you share that episode with them. Or if you go to the New Life app or get the podcast on iTunes, whatever the case may be, those are easy, accessible ways. And I mentioned this earlier, it's easy to share resources than ever to get help into people's hands. And so those are some things that you can do to help us as a ministry to get the help that it's needed so that people like this woman can have those turning point, type experiences. Jim, you know, I've been in youth ministry. We always see like camp and conferences and retreats. Those are like major catalytic moments in the lives of students. And it's funny, you meet them later as adults, and it's like, no, when I was at such and such weekend, or this retreat or this conference or at camp or whatever, maybe that was the weekend I gave my life to Christ, or that was the weekend where I confronted the things I was really dealing with, or I processed my parents' divorce for the first time, or whatever the case may be. Trust me, that stuff happened. There is adult, quote unquote, youth group as well. Those moments happen in adulthood as well. And so by giving, you are making that possible for other people. So thank you. Yeah. And so I want to wrap this thing up and just simply encourage, just again, as we kind of tie a bow on this, the importance of, and we heard it from Rudy's story. I've just been reflecting on this, and just hearing in his voice, just that longing for community. Mm-hmm. We are invited to live. I mean, what I have in front of me is the iPhone, YouTube. There used to be the old days, MySpace. There's just a very personalized, isolated type thing, and we've got to double down on finding community for people. And maybe if you guys have a final thought on how to push people to do that if they're really lacking that in their life.
Well, people who are leaving the church, they come back oftentimes. They don't say, hey, it was because of great preaching or incredible worship. They come back because they say, I was in such need of community.
Yeah.
So community is what we need, and we have to be proactive about it. We have what I like to call VDPs, very draining people, but we also have VIPs, very inspiring people. Find those very inspiring people who are your replenishing relationships. Live out life and your life in community. You will do much better.
Absolutely. Jill, anything you'd add?
Well, and it's just that the in-person,
yeah,
right? There's a lot of great info that we get from our phones, but you're right, it's in isolation, and it can be a false sense of community. Exactly. We need real, living, breathing people with skin on.
That's right. Yep. Well said. Well, thanks again for joining us on the program today. Again, if you found it helpful, as I said, you can go to the New Life app and download that, or to the YouTube channel and share with a friend or a family member that's in need. But Jim, Jill, thanks for hanging out with us today, and thanks again for being on New Life Live.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or write to us at New Life Ministries, P.O. Box 1029, Lake Forest, California, 92609. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.
Hi, thank you for watching New Life Live. You know, New Life Live is a Christian counseling program where we deal with the hard questions about life, relationships, kids, free choice, freedom of will, whatever. It's all right there on New Life Live every day, every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. If you want to call into the live broadcast, you can find the schedule on newlife.com or click the social media link right below. You can see every episode of New Life Live on the New Life YouTube channel. Watch it with a friend, watch it later. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you'll never miss another episode. So if you want to listen on the go, download the app. The link is right below. And I hope if you need some information, if you want to get some help, you'll call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. And I'll see you next time.